so to speak, waiting line for immediate relatives because there's an unlimited number. Now, there is processing time. It can take a year or more to get someone their green card that way, but there's no waiting lines. But in the quota categories, there are waiting lines because you saw the numbers in each category there, and the numbers available, and there's lots more people who apply every year to immigrate than those numbers. So this chart, which is for August 2009, shows where those waiting lines stand for the different categories. This chart comes out every month. It's on the Department of State website, and so you can look it up, and it changes a little bit, not a lot every month, but anyway, this shows the waiting lines. So, for instance, let's just say if you're from Mexico, you have an adult child still in Mexico, you have immigrated, and you're a permanent resident, and for whatever reason, you want your adult child to join you here in the States. According to this chart, that would be the 2B category, that if the child's not married, unmarried sons and daughters of permanent residents. Once a child gets married, you couldn't even sponsor that child unless you were a U.S. citizen. But let's say the child's unmarried, and you want that child to join you. You would have had to apply for that person to come this month, August 2009, before May 8th, 1992. Does everybody see that on the chart there? Okay. So you would have had to put in your application for that relative before May 8th, 1992, and then it's not that immigration is slow in processing. That's not the problem. They will get that processed for you in a few months or a few years or whatever. That's not really the problem. It's that there's no visa available for this person to come until August 2009. Okay. So that's our family system. Now, how about our employment system? That's the other big category. The employment system is 140,000 visas per year, and that counts spouses and children. So out of that, the number of primary workers, I don't know if that's 100,000 or I don't know what that statistic is, but it's somewhat less than 140,000, which, if you do the math, is about 0.046 of the total population and about 0.097 of the working population in the U.S. Okay, so very small numbers we're talking about here. All right, so there are categories for this too, but these categories, instead of being based on relationship, are based on the kind of job and what are the requirements to do that kind of job. So the first category is for these priority workers. These are kind of the Nobel Prize winners or the international executives and managers, someone who's doing, fantastic research to cure cancer, something like that. Then we have the advanced degree holders. And when I say advanced degree holders, that's what the category is called, but really it means the job requires someone who has an advanced degree. What they mean by that is beyond a bachelor's degree, a master's degree, PhD, or the equivalent of that is a bachelor's degree plus 5 years experience. But it's not just what the person has, it's what the job requires. Okay, so you've got to look at that. Then you have the skilled workers. And the skilled workers are really divided into two categories. The top part of that category is anybody who's doing a job that requires at least 2 years experience or training up to bachelor's degree plus 4 years experience. Okay, that anybody in that whole broad range is a skilled worker. And then they have what's called other workers, which is a subgroup of the skilled workers, and that's everybody else. People who are doing a job that requires less than 2 years experience, education, or training. Okay, so kind of what we would call maybe lesser skilled workers, low skilled workers, whatever word you want to put to that. That's the other workers. We also have a category for religious workers and ministers, and then we have our employment creation category, which is you have $1 million, you create 10 jobs, welcome to America. So let's see how this all pans out when we look at the waiting lines. Now, when you see the C's in this chart, that means current. That means no waiting line. It means we don't have enough applicants to fill up the quotas. And each country has a quota as well, and they're the same. They divide them up equally, but each country has a quota and each category has a quota. Now, this chart is the reason I have an asterisk and I have some of these in parentheses is right now, these categories I have in parentheses with the date, actually you would see a U if you pulled this chart up on the web, and that means unavailable. That means they've run out of visas for the year. The fiscal year is from October 1st to September 30. So until October 1st, there's no more visas available in these categories, but what I put up there was the last available date to give you an idea of how long these waiting lines are. So we'll go into just in a little bit more of how this process works, but basically what this is telling employers is that they have to prove they have a job open that no one here can fill, that they're not undercutting the U.S. job market, but then they have to wait until this number becomes available to fill it with a foreign worker. So as you see, for some of even the skilled jobs, the ones that require a bachelor's degree, you're still looking at waiting from 2003, 2001, depending on where you're from, and then the other workers 2001 for people to immigrate in 2009. Now, the only reason that's not further back is that most people don't even bother to apply for the other workers because it's so backed up. But anyway, so you're talking about waiting 8 years to fill a job that no one can fill. Now, there is a little bit of an out for employers, and this is where the non-immigrant visa categories come in. The only sort of lesser skilled, I'd say, temporary visas are for either agricultural jobs, but it has to be seasonal agricultural jobs, so harvesting kind of jobs, those kind of things. You could get an H-2A. Or if it's non-agricultural seasonal jobs, you can get an H-2B. Now, the H-2A is unlimited, but the H-2B is only $66,000 a year, and typically those run out very quickly in most years. And so, as we all know, who live in an agricultural state, we know that most agriculture jobs are not seasonal. Okay, pigs have to be fed. Hens keep laying eggs, all those things all year round. So it doesn't help a lot of agricultural employers, and non-agricultural employers, most of those, of course, aren't seasonal either. Buildings need to be cleaned all year round. Nursing home patients need to be cared for all year round. You can go on and on. So we don't have any temporary visas to encompass those. So basically, you're talking about someone who is looking for, say, a CNA to work in a nursing home, can't find one, knows of a foreign worker who would like to work in a nursing home, and they can sponsor that person, but they have to wait 8 years. So, and even for the high-skilled workers, say that H-1B you hear about quite a bit, is for bachelor degree level specialty occupations. There's only a limited number of those every year, too. Now, this year hasn't been much of a problem because of the recession. There's not as many jobs, for foreign workers available. But most years, that runs out the first day that it's open. So even for the higher skilled workers, it's not a great deal.